You're listening to Beyond Technique, the podcast that empowers photographers to bring their businesses to the next level. Hello, and welcome to Beyond Technique, the podcast that empowers photographers to bring their businesses to the next level. Brought to you by Platypod, Photofocus, and Skip Cohen University. This is Shamira Young, and I'm joined by my co-host and king of the unicorn emojis, Skip Cohen. Skip.
All right, now I understand why you were worried about offending me today. And yes, I am deeply offended.
I knew it.
Now I have to explain it to everybody. I can do it in 30 seconds. When we do these podcasts, Shamira and I are connected via text. And just to see if I can get her to crack and have water coming out of her nose as she laughs in the middle of a podcast, I will send. Usually it's the poopy emoji.
That one gets me.
Today she got the absurd unicorn with the hearts in the eyes. So that's what started it, everybody. Hey, Shamira, under the umbrella of rainbows and unicorns, especially right now through the pandemic and everything that we're all dealing with, I can't believe the number of creative ideas and images being shared on the Platypod blog and the Instagram. And somebody really did say to me the other day that this is like a rainbow of creativity because everybody is stuck right now. Everybody is still different states depending on where you live. You are more hunkered down than others. And not everybody has the freedom to just be out. And it's really been fun because Platypod is giving so many artists an outlet of creativity and things that they can do while social distancing, while being either indoors or at least confined in a particular area. And there's so much there's so many cool things being shared under that, rainbow and unicorn of creativity.
It's so cool. I'm looking at some of the content that people are putting out using their Platypod, and I'm seeing light painting, I'm seeing tabletop portraits, I'm seeing self-portraits, frozen fruit, I'm seeing toy photography, and these are all done while under quarantine. At least most of it is, and it is so versatile. It's unreal. And, it's as far as Platypod being, we'll say, the unicorn of tripods, it's absolutely true. As far as versatility and creativity goes, there is no limit to what you can shoot, either in your home or even as this quarantine is lifting out in the field. It's very cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Platypod is ever going to want to use that as an ad line, the unicorn of tripods. but it is kind of fun to find out that those outlets for creativity really do exist at a time when it's pretty hard just to have fun these days when everything is buried under the stress of worrying about your health and your family. And here's an opportunity to just be creative with your photography. And speaking of unicorns, we've got somebody from the unicorn capital of the world, a little town in Georgia. We've got Cindy Harter Sims joining us today, and she is no stranger to the SCU blog. And in fact, it's thanks to a summer program I used to put together that introduced me to Cindy for the first time years ago. Now, there's probably nothing she can't photograph, but her passion is definitely people, and lately, especially babies. But stay tuned because she's one of the most creative and relationship-building artists in the industry. There's no telling what her focus might be next. As an award-winning WPPI master photographer, it's obvious when you scroll through her galleries that she's also a perfectionist, and she's always meeting the expectations of her clients. So, with the impact of the pandemic, it's never been more important to maintain your relationships with your clients and target audience, and that's going to be our topic today because nobody does it better than Cindy. So, Cindy, this is going to be the cue for your lips to move. Welcome to Beyond Technique.
Thank you so much, Skip, and thank you, Shamira, for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
And you didn't know you lived in the unicorn capital of the world.
Well, I am really blessed to live in one of the most quaint small towns in Georgia. I'm about 40 minutes north of Atlanta in a town called Cartersville, Georgia, and my studio sits right on Main Street. And we have the most adorable, active Main Street. A lot of movies have been made in our town because it is exactly what you think of as a southern small town kind of environment. We have about 20,000 in our city limits, and I love living there.
How far are you from Ashley McBride's Little Dive Bar in Dahlonega?
It takes about an hour and a half.
Now, is that driving or crawling home?
Well, usually when we go to Dahlonega, we get on the back of my husband's motorcycle. So it takes us about an hour and a half. It's pretty fun. That's a beautiful town.
See that? You didn't know that I had been there.
Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't realize, Cindy, that your town is actually smaller than my town. My town, Port Huron, is about 30,000 within the city limits. And it's just so cool that you have a thriving business. Just for our listeners' benefit, Cindy and I chatted on the phone yesterday for a few minutes. And I was amazed to hear that your business, it sounds like it's thriving. And you're in a small town, thriving business during a pandemic. This is going to be a really cool conversation. I'm really excited to dig into how you run your business. But first, we like to start with our favorite first question, just so our listeners can, get to know you. Can you share with us, Cindy, how you got started in photography and doing what you're doing today?
Absolutely. It was about 15 years ago. I had gone through a divorce. I was a music teacher in this town. I was the music teacher for the primary school. So I taught 1,100 children every 6 days under the age of 8 years old. And I loved that job. But after the divorce, I started doing photography really as therapy. It was not looking for another job. It was to prove to myself that love existed and that it existed with other people. And I would seek out people that I knew were truly connected. And as a way to roll around in love, I would take their picture. And that's how it started. And little by little, it started to restore my own heart in that I knew love was real because I was seeing it all the time. And it attracted people to my work. They started seeing something in the work. And people started asking me to take their picture. And that's how it started until eventually, over about a 5-year period, I knew that I had 2 full-time jobs and I had to make a choice between teaching school and following photography. And much to my own surprise, I followed the photography and I have never looked back. My business just doubled and tripled and quadrupled, and I have been so thankful. My photography uses more of me than anything I've ever done in any kind of business life.
Well, I think it's interesting. There's another piece of the story here, which we don't need to take the time to go into today, but we'll have the link to a post we did on SCU on your background a few years back. But you didn't just have your eye set on wanting to build a business as a photographer. I remember talking to you about you saving over a 5-year period until you also had the money to launch your business, and then lucked out with a small storefront, literally on what most of us would think of as Main Street, USA, in a small town. I mean, seriously,
Absolutely.
Everybody, this is, if you ever watched Mayberry, this is the equivalent of Mayberry. It's a very small town with a lot of trust and a lot of people in it that Cindy has managed to build a relationship with. And I think that's part of the key.
Yes.
Right now. And then, in fact, that segues really nicely into social distancing and talking about how in the world you can say your business is thriving when there's so many limitations because of the pandemic. So what are some of the things that you're doing to keep in touch in terms of products or services, everything?
Yes. Well, I probably want to give you a little bit of backstory in that before the pandemic hit, I really do look for opportunities to be active in the community, to pick up my camera for causes that I believe in within the community. So leading up to, March, I guess, is when it started to hit where they were encouraging us to stay home. And then it was at the end of March that we got the shelter in place order. So I had to completely shut everything down as far as taking my camera and working with people. But leading up to that point, in 2020, I did a project for a local personal care home for men with special needs. My husband and I were at dinner, and I overheard a conversation with some people that were at our community table. It was one of those Tokyo steakhouses. So they were speaking about where they worked and that they needed some more light on something that they were doing. And we were talking, and I said, I think I could help with my camera. I think I could shed some light. And I did this project for this personal care home with special needs. And I have a pretty good Facebook following from my community. And within 2 days, they had people bringing food, people taking things to the home, and it was really helping. It was a little later on that the homeless shelter here in our community services, so many people. And I decided to bring my camera out once a week, and I would focus on stories take pictures of people who were helped, and they would tell their story of how they got there and what happened after the fact. And then we had a big event one night, and I displayed all the photographs I had taken with their stories. And it just helped shed some light on the subject matter. I also do all kinds of projects. Once a month, I go into the schools and I take pictures of the children that are students of the month once a month. Anything that I can think to do to help, I will do. And so when the end of March hit and we had the shelter in place, I put out a basic SOS on my Facebook feed that, needless to say, I think anybody with a small business, we were all worried with good reason. There are many that have gone under and had to close their doors, but I am stubborn and I am a hard worker. And I am not afraid to work. And I just kept thinking, if we can all pull together and if we can pull from the equity that we have put into relationships up to this point, people want to help. My husband is one of those guys. I learned so much from him about relationships. He's one of those friends that no matter if your car breaks down, he's the guy everybody calls to come pick them up. If you have a tool that you need, you call my husband because he probably has it and he will bring it to you. He has moved more people. Nobody wants to help people move, but my husband always helps. So when he gets in a pinch, I can't even explain to you how many people come out of the woodwork to help him. And I try to model that in my business because every relationship kind of an experience is the same. In businesses, if my business neighbors need help with photography or whatever, I really try to be there over and above what I'm required. And as a result of all the equity I've put in so many different places, I had no idea how important it was for now, because I put out an SOS of I might need some help. And I gave 2 ways people could help at first. And it was, if you have had a past session with me, please buy a print. Please buy another print. If you could buy a print for your grandma or your neighbor or whoever, that would help me. If you would buy gift certificates, that would help me. And if you can't do that, if we've ever had a session, would you please go and leave me a Google review? And I can't even tell you how many people came to my aid. I have had gift certificates bought, prints made, the sweetest Google reviews. I feel like reading my Google reviews. I read my obituary. It was just such an uplifting, and it lifted my spirits that it's going to be all right. People are going to take care of me. It's going to be all right. And making the personal texting that went on one by one as I asked every client I've ever had in the last 10 years, specifically, would you be willing to leave me a Google review if you have not done one yet? And it was an excuse to start conversation and get caught up relationally with the people that I have shot the last 10 years. And people booked future sessions. People bought gift certificates. It gave me a reason to interact with people and catch up. And since then, people have checked in. It's been really one of the most uplifting experiences through this, in that instead of just sinking lower and lower and getting more and more worried, I've looked for reasons for interaction with those people who have kept my business going for the last 12 years. And it's working. And here I am in May, and I opened my business back up 2 weeks ago. Granted, I live in Georgia. I know in a lot of states, they're not really allowed to be open yet. I'm so thankful that I've been working for 2 weeks, and so many people have not just booked, but I've had so many inquiries that I've actually double booked some days, where I usually do one session a day, but I've been doing 2 sessions a day, just to keep up with all the inquiries. And I'm just so thankful that people are being responsive to the need. And it's because of those people that I've been able to be okay. And I can understand how people might think that a small town, it might be harder to keep things going because there's less people. But I would probably disagree with that, in that I see the same people at the grocery store as I see at red lights, as I go down the street. You know somebody's car when they pass by your house, and we look out for each other. And it has never been more apparent to me than now. I've had part of the Google reviews, people recognize the things that I had done for the community, or things that I didn't have to do, but I did because I wanted to help them. And they're returning it 1,000-fold by helping me now. And I couldn't be more grateful.
You are one of possibly the first, if there's someone else, they are not standing out to me right now, because you're one of the few people, maybe one of the first people I've heard use the word uplifting as far as this whole pandemic, to describe this whole pandemic experience. And I think that's really cool that you're able to focus on being positive and optimistic, and also taking action. I love that you reached out to your clients and your past clients and your friends, and just the role of the years of selfless relationship building that you have been involved in. It's all coming back to you. It's like seeds that you planted. And I'm really curious to hear, because you took action and now you have future bookings to look forward to. By the way, how cool is that? While your business was closed down, you were booking portrait sessions for the future. What? So now you have those to look forward to. How does your business look with the new normal? I know I can't say post-pandemic because we're still in it, but we are shifting into this new normal. Are there any procedural changes that you have made to your business? I guess it's a two-part question. Procedure-wise, how does your business look in the new normal? And then what tips do you have for people looking to build up their business?
To answer that question, I think, and it's what I do even before the pandemic, I follow the lead of the client. I follow them to make somebody feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable in front of a camera lens, which is a really scary, vulnerable thing. And it is the same with a baby as it is with an 82-year-old, is you have to meet them where they are. And I try to really be a good listener and feel them and meet them where they are. If I have a mom come to me who is scared to death, but she wants her baby to be photographed at this age because she knows it's never going to be again, the first thing I do is I ask her, I want to follow the precautions that make you feel the most comfortable right now. What does that mean for you? And the sessions that I have done in the last 2 weeks, I have had some people say, I want you 10 feet away. I want you to stay over there. Don't touch me. Don't touch my kid. And I say, that's okay. If that's where you are right now, then that's what we'll do. And I have had others that, say, keep a mask on, keep gloves on. And I meet them where they are and follow their lead. And that has been what I have done. And it has worked beautifully because everyone feels comfortable. And once everyone feels comfortable and safe, then you can get to the part where they open up their spirit and their soul to you, because that's truly what I'm there for. We don't want just pretty pictures. I don't want just pretty pictures. I want a picture that speaks to who they are and speaks to the story that they have to tell. And you can't tell your story unless you feel safe enough first to tell it.
There's a point that I want to hit on, and maybe there are other things that you've also done that it might come bubbling to the surface here. Shamira and I have been involved in a couple of different podcasts where we've talked about the pandemic, and people have commented about the importance of keeping in touch with your clients and just being helpful during this horrible time in history, and that people will remember it. And when you were talking before, and Shamira talked about, seeds that were planted, you've been planting seeds in the community. And for people that haven't done that, I want to remind everybody, it's never too late. So
Yes.
In terms of being helpful now, and even if you're not well known in your community, and if you're in the middle of New York, I learned a long time ago, New York has 1,000 different neighborhoods. You still have your own little area. You still have a neighborhood. You still have neighbors and people that you see, and maybe you haven't seen them quite so often. And New York is is hard to use an example because it's normally so busy and it's had such a huge adjustment because of the pandemic. But the point is that being helpful now is something people are going to remember later on. So I think that's a big piece. You just happen to have started doing it 5 years ago. And this is where the payback comes in being able to say, hey guys, I need some help. And you are known in the community. And because you've been involved in the community, because of that men's, what was it, a nursing home or care facility?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because you got involved there out of overhearing a conversation. That's the way I wish we can help get more photographers and artists, just to set your mindset that way. And just keep in tune to what's going on around you and how you can help. Whether there's money in it for you right now or not, doesn't matter. It'll be there later.
Absolutely. It is never too late to be interested in people. There is a smoothie shop that I go to, and I love their smoothies. Sometimes I go there for breakfast. And the manager, she would serve me. Eventually, she knew my order because I get the same thing every single time. And I make sure that when I know she's got 2 kids, I know their names, I know how old they are. She knows I photograph babies for a living, and I always show her who my latest client, some picture from the last session. And we talk every time, and she's part of my community. She's part of my tight community. I would call her one of my dear little friends. She's one of those people I see several times a week. I go to the post office and I mail off sessions, prints or whatever to go wherever. And they know me by name. They know what I do. They know my packages always look the same when they get taken and mailed off. And so we talk about what I do. And I've actually booked sessions from the post office workers because they know that's what I do. And they know how I get excited to see, them all go off. And I wish my prints well as they leave me. And no matter where you go, I think you should take the time to be interested in people and ask them. And people are so relieved to not just have to make a smoothie, but actually get a chance to talk about their kids, or not just have to take you through the post office things that you do at the post office, but to actually ask you, who's getting this set of prints? They always ask me, this one was a set of twins, or this was a family, or this was a maternity session, and it gives people a reason to have an intimate connection with you, which is what we all long for. I mean, the reason why I love being a photographer is because the camera gives me an excuse to have intimate connections with so many people, and they tell me their secrets and all of their stories and the things that are closest to their heart, and that means everything.
Wow.
Yeah, I was just going to do a wow, and then there was silence because I was thinking about wow.
Oh, Cindy, this is so cool. I'm curious. Has the pandemic caused you to change your promotions for the rest of this year? What promotions do you have, or what plans do you have as far as continuing to bring in clients and book portrait sessions?
Well, I have to say that booking slowed down, of course, in March and April, and the first part of May too, for obvious reasons. Nobody could go anywhere and that sort of thing. But as things have lifted, I have a wedding booked for this Saturday. I don't do very many weddings anymore. I'll do about 5 to 10 a year. But God love her, she did not want to change it. She had maybe 200 guests invited in the beginning when she first did it, but she and her fiance decided that they wanted to get married regardless of what's going on in the world, and everyone on the planet canceled on them. Their caterer, the place for the reception venue, I mean, people just started canceling right and left, and I told her, I will have to be dead to not be there. I will be there. This is a huge, wonderful day, and if it's just your family, it's just your family, and I'll be there. And she's ending up having it in her backyard. And how beautiful is that? Because our stories continue. And I feel like my job is to capture the histories of all the family. So I can't say that I have a preconceived marketing plan in place right now, except that wherever you are, I want to meet you there, and I want to be in it with you. And if we can't, I photographed several births, but if I can't be, I've missed some through this pandemic that I was supposed to be in the delivery room with them, but of course that's not allowed right now. So I've had one of my dads with the cell phone, and I'm helping him to know where to be, where the light is good, and wherever it is, and however I can be there with you in it. That's what I want to do. And if it's through your cell phone because we can't be together in the same room because of all this stuff, well, I will meet you there. If it's your comfort level that we do a picture of you in your bed with a beautiful maternity portrait or whatever, and it's your husband taking the picture because you don't feel comfortable coming into the studio, or me being close enough to you, I will meet you there and I will help you. If you feel more comfortable being outside and me being 10 feet away, I will meet you there. If you want to come into the studio and borrow my maternity gowns that are in my studio closet and we create something amazing with studio lighting, I will meet you there. So I'm once again following the lead of the people that love me and come to me.
I'm just curious. A while back, Shamira and I did, in fact, not so long ago, a couple of weeks ago, we did a podcast for Tamron Recipes with Eric Vallon. And Eric talked about how, as a commercial photographer, he's going back to all of his clients because they still need, especially lifestyle images for whether it's online or advertising. And he's got so much in his archives. And when you were talking before about going back to past clients and going through your whole database and saying, hey guys, will you take a look and think about purchasing a print? what's been your big seller from that part of the outreach? What did people seem to go, those that came back to you, what did they want?
I think mostly they wanted to help, and I had so many prints purchased. I mean, that paid rent for, a couple months, which was great. Just in the print purchases alone. And some people, if they had all the prints that they wanted, but they still wanted to help, they did a gift certificate. So I don't know that I could say there was a clear cut prints from baby sessions were the big thing that sold the most, or family portraits, or I would say across the board, at least 50% of my clients bought something or helped in some way, whether it be a gift certificate for a future session or Google reviews. I did end up with 93 new Google reviews. So 93 people responded with just was, I couldn't have, and then to read them, they were so nice. I was like, who are they talking about? Oh, I was just teary reading them. It's really, really special. It really was very encouraging.
You've helped build that community in terms of the photographic side. I mean, if this had been you still teaching music, they would have found a way to buy you a new piano. It would have been the results would have been different, but the method would have been the same. And that's the point that I hope we can get more of our listeners to remember, that giving back and being helpful right now, the world has never needed it more. And everybody is always, even before the pandemic, everybody is always forgetting about their past customers because they're searching for new ones.
Yes.
And yet your past customers, unless you were really stupid and totally were horrible and pissed them off,
right.
That's your best, right. I mean, that's your best resource. So if you've had this relationship with them, and like I said, unless you've been horrible, there's a great resource out there to be able to go back to people and say, hey, because we are all in this together, and to be able to say, hey, here's what I've got. And right now is a time in history where I think photography is more important than it's ever been, because we're all clinging to memories of the good old days, and the good old days were only 90 days ago. We're not going back. Yeah, we're not going back like me being an old guy and going back, 20, 30 years ago, here's what we did. It's 90 days ago. Right. And those pictures, those photographs that everybody has in their archives of past clients are incredibly valuable, especially in seasonality. Mother's Day is already passed, but you've got graduation, in many cases, was delayed and will be coming up in June, yes. Even though normally it might have been in May. Then you've got Father's Day coming up. What a perfect time to go back to your archives and come up with some ideas of past clients of, hey, what are you getting Dad for Father's Day this year? What are you getting Grandpa?
If they chose you once, with a little reminder, they will choose you again.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Very good stuff. And I can't believe we are already to our final question. Unless, Skip, you want to jump in with anything else on your mind?
No, I'm good. Cindy, you have shared so much good content and so much of a foundation for people to think about in terms of their target audience and their existing client base.
Thank you. I'm so glad I got to be here. Thank you for asking me. It means a lot.
Thank you for...
We didn't let you go
we're
yet.
We're not done. Thank you for being awesome. This is our favorite final question that we like to ask. Cindy, what advice do you have for photographers who are just starting out right now? What should be their first step they take?
Don't buy anything unless you have the money to buy it.
So true.
Make do with what you have. That has been my theme throughout. And there have been occasions that I lost my mind and did something where I overstretched myself. And every time I regret it, and every time I have to preach this thing to myself, do not buy it unless you have the money to buy it.
That's perfect. That's perfect. It's funny. I was just talking to a family member who has a friend who decided, this was I think sometime last year maybe, they decided they wanted to be a photographer, and they purchased thousands upon thousands of dollars worth of equipment and outfits, even for future clients to build their portfolio, for people to wear.
Terrifying.
And then their passion lasted all of, prepare yourself, 3 months before they moved on. And they started with thousands of dollars of equipment, and it's crazy. It's crazy. So I love your advice. Make do with what you have. Learn how to use what you have. Don't go crazy with the equipment, because the equipment does not make a successful photographer necessarily. So
no. And the stress of being in debt, and the stress of having to come up with who knows however far you stretched yourself is not worth it. It's just not worth it.
And I've been there. I've made that mistake. We've all kind of made mistakes, the same mistakes. So that's perfect advice. Perfect. And I do want to make sure and ask, where can folks find your work online to check you out?
You can find my website at cindyharterphotography.com. You can find me on Facebook at Cindy Harter Photography. You can find me on Instagram, Cindy Harter, Harter. And I would just love to interact with you at any of those places.
Fantastic. We'll make sure to include links to those in the show notes as well. And Skip, where can folks hunt you down?
It's the same every single time you ask me. It doesn't change. Everything I write is at skipcohenuniversity.com. My email is skip@mei500.com. And Twitter and Facebook are both Skip Cohen. Not particularly creative, just my name. And where are they going to go to find you?
Folks can find me. They can send me an email at shamira@photofocus.com. That's my first name, Shamira, Chamira. That's at photofocus.com. We love getting questions, ideas, feedback, because it shapes how we move forward with this show. And it also influences who we have on the show. And with that said, Cindy, you have been amazing. Thank you again.
Just great stuff, Cindy.
This was awesome.
Thank you for having me so much.
And we want to thank our listeners for joining us as well. Please tell your friends about this podcast, especially if they want to improve their photography business during these very interesting times. We look forward to having you with us next time on Beyond Technique, brought to you by Platypod, Photofocus, and Skip Cohen University.